Hello everyone, my name is Auren with CompuMatter here on Tech Translated, and we're a podcast. We want to make sure anybody who has technical issues or wants to just learn more about technology can have it translated so that it makes more sense to the average user. There's a lot out there that we need to learn and understand. Even as technicians, technology is constantly changing. So I do a lot of things here. I am both an IT technician. I also do on-site and one-on-one training. I'm also a little bit into the marketing as well. So if you have any questions, one of us, Douglas, is not here today, but he can also help answer questions. We all see your comments, and whenever you drop by the store, it's great to see you.
All right. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Auren.
Sure.
My name is Jay. I'm the owner of CompuMatter, and I can't tell you enough how much we value this person. She wears so many hats in the business, and there are a lot of gaps to be filled in this business. There's the marketing, there's the websites, there's the shipping, there's the fixing of computers, there's the going to visit customers in their homes and businesses, and she occupies a lot of those roles. I have been in this business for, since I was, I won't give all that away, I suppose, but in excess of 40 years. And since the days of DOS, since floppy disks were 5 1/4 inches, and I've seen a lot of evolutions of technology with the days of Windows first coming out, the days of the Internet first coming out, and of course more recently the days of AI first coming out. So it's been interesting to be along for the ride, and that's why I own a computer store and learned a lot over the years that we hope to translate into information that you can easily digest.
Oh. We should make sure our audio is coming through here real quick, so just give us 1 second. If you have any questions, though, we'll see them.
All right, yeah, if you have any feedback, there is a chat button. We are streaming this on YouTube and on Facebook simultaneously. Please drop us a line if you think our audio is fine or bad or something along those lines. We are streaming it if you think our audio is fine or bad.
Testing.
Or something along those lines. We are streaming it if you think our audio is fine or
Okay, yeah, I think we look good.
Okay, good.
I think we're good to go.
All right, let's start this thing off.
Yeah.
What do we have a little bit of an agenda here. We're going to regularly go off of that agenda, but this will give us at least a popcorn trail to start with.
Yeah. Well, I got a question for you. Yeah. So for people that may use machines and, whether you work on an Apple computer or Windows, you may hear the term virtual machine or VM get thrown around a lot. How would you explain a virtual machine to the average user?
That's a good question. Virtual machines are something people often hear about. I remember the first time I had one of my employees, I'm trying to think of his name and it escapes me, Nelson, if you're out there. You were the first person to introduce me to the concept of virtual machines, and this was about 20 years ago. Wow. And I saw Windows in a square coming up as just like you would open Word or you would open some other program. It comes up in a windowed box. Yet in that box was the Windows booting process, from the boot screen through the loading, through the sound Windows made when it opened, and it was all happening in a container. And that can be done with Linux. I can even do it with Apple, though it's not prescribed by Apple, and it's more challenging. But the reality is it gives you a computer in a computer, and it's a computer in every way, every use of the word. Your sound, your ability to play videos, your viruses. If you get a virus in a virtual machine, your regular machine is completely insulated from it. It is a computer within a computer, and I think that's the best way to explain them. There's a program called VirtualBox, which Oracle produces and provides for free. That's the one I use. There's another one out there called VMware. Both of those programs can be installed just like you would install any program on your computer, and this, whether you have an Apple or a Linux or a Windows, doesn't matter. You can go download one of those two programs, and that gives you the framework to install a virtual machine with or in. And then you can go to Microsoft and download their Windows 11 ISO file. All of this freely downloadable. and you can install that Windows ISO, which is just it's like a CD, a downloadable CD in a single file. You can install that in your virtual machine via VirtualBox or VMware, and you'll have the same magic that I experienced 20 years ago, and a program, and that would all be free. Now, your Windows would not be licensed. You'd have to go out and license that. At the same point, virtual machine with Linux installed is a very common thing, because there are times when you want to be sure that you are insulated from a virus, period, right? And since Linux almost never gets anything viral. I mean, I've been in the business 20 years. I can think of only one situation where I've ever seen a real virus on a Linux computer. And so that allows you to browse in anonymity, browse in safety, anytime you just open that virtual machine. And you can close it and nobody even knows that it's there, so that's kind of interesting. But I use them all the time.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're incredibly useful. I think you can install older operating systems too if you were working with a particular software and you wanted to have Windows 11 and still work on maybe a Windows 7 piece of software that just won't work. There's also something in Windows called Compatibility Mode that you can attempt to use on some of those programs just to see if it kind of acts in a way like a virtual machine for that specific program and lets you try to run it. So that's another interesting.
That's a very good point. You can take some people have old architectural software, old accounting software, whatever the purpose may be, and you can find a Windows 7 ISO instead of 10 or 11, install it in the virtual machine, and your own computer can be Windows 11 or Apple latest, whatever that is, and run this older software in that container environment with no expense, just your time or our time if you don't want to fool with it.
And also, just so people are aware, they've probably heard ISO get thrown around. It's a file format for the type of, I guess I'd say, the operating system of the virtual machine that you're trying to run. So how you maybe see things like .jpeg or .pdf at the end of some of your files, it would end in .iso, and that's what we're talking about with that.
Yeah, I wanted to just take that over to the screen here and just show people how you can find an ISO. I'm just going to type in Windows 11 ISO, hit enter, and there's your option right off the bat. Download Windows 11. You go there, they're going to ask you a few questions. Let's see, right here. Download Windows 11 ISO for 64-bit devices. You pick the version, which they only give you one, and you can download that ISO and install it in your virtual machine program. Yeah. Now, getting a Windows 7 ISO is probably going to be a little bit more challenging. Let me just type that in. Oh, well done. I'm not that anybody really needs one of those, but you can Google around and find a popcorn trail, and hopefully you'll come up with the ISO and not find a virus while you're doing it.
Yeah, be cautious.
But there are links out there to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a lot of cool things you can do with that. And actually that does segue into another question that we get a lot of these questions from our customers or business users. And it's if they have old unsupported software on their newer operating system, whether it be an Apple computer or a Windows, how they can continue using it reliably on that computer. So say the computer hardware is old and at this point they'd have to upgrade and get a brand new computer, but they're worried that once they do that, they'll no longer have access to the software. Maybe they paid for it or they just don't have access to it anymore outside of it. It was only made for that particular instance of the operating system. So how would we go about making it more reliable if you want to continue using that old operating system? And my first recommendation would actually be to make sure your computer, whether it be desktop or laptop, has a solid state drive in place. And most of the time, if you're running a really old machine, they come pre-installed with a conventional hard drive. So you have a spinning disk platter drive with an arm that goes back and forth to read, write, and data. Over time, that can really start to wear out and make your system a lot slower and also unreliable. It could fail. It could cause you some issues, maybe some software corruption. So it's recommended to check that out first and foremost. And then second would be if you're on something unsupported, whether it's Apple or Windows, make sure you have an antivirus in place. That's really important because there's a lot of garbage out there, and once you're in an unsupported operating system, your computer is targeted more for vulnerabilities. You want to make sure you're constantly looking out and being cautious of what you click. Maybe if it's a software that doesn't require the internet, maybe you just don't use the internet on that computer and use it for that particular software. That would be my recommendation. Looks like you got an example here.
I did. I figured while you were talking about this, I saw this in the shop the other day. For probably 25, 30 years, maybe more, this is the standard in the industry for hard drives. And for those that remember record players, you'll see the very familiar album here and the needle there, except in the case of these drives, you have a laser pointer here and this disc material, which I don't even know what it's made of, but it's like something from outer space. It's pretty special stuff. And it's shiny like a mirror, and the data gets embedded within that from the laser. It gets, I don't know if it gets burned into place or exactly how it does what it does, but it's able to clean it up, read over it, write it, erase it, put more in there, and so on. And over time, this particular drive is scored. You see that little scratch in the center. I don't know if you can see that well enough or not, but that is as a result of the armature starting to go bad, and it's starting to etch into the drive itself. Let me see if I can get a little closer view of that. Okay, so
I think that's visible.
Yeah, there's the scoring. So little by little, this drive started to fail, and the customer came in, and we would do our best to retrieve the data off of that drive and move them in a different direction. Now, those drives are still valid, and they're still great. And like most of the large data warehouses that are housing gargantuan amounts of data are going to have it stored on these. These are the big data farms. Now, there's a movement towards solid state storage, but the fact is you can buy so much more storage for the dollar on that technology than you can the SSD. And frankly, my opinion is that is still more bulletproof technology over the long term. I mean, I've seen these guys last 10 years with regularity. But the movement is definitely going to the SSD, and it has been for a number of probably 10 years now. And this is what's replacing it. The SSD has no moving parts. Everything's digital. There's no armature, none of that. All your zeros and ones are right here. And at the very beginning, these were not reliable at all. I remember I bought some for our web server, and within one and a half years, they had died. And this was the early days of SSDs, and I was on the frontier, and I could tell it was super fast. They are much faster than the conventionals, but they weren't reliable. Now they are reliable, very reliable. In fact, the servers that we build, we use these for the operating systems that boot the drives because they are so much faster and they are reliable enough to do that with.
Right. Yeah, that is a good thing to mention. For those conventional hard drives, they're really good still for backup usage, or if you have a ton of data, just having some additional places to store things, because they do take a lot longer. You can typically, if you know how to scan your hard drive and test it and make sure it has good health, make sure it's running properly. It fails slowly in most cases unless you drop it. But with a solid state drive, if something goes wrong, usually you don't get much of a warning.
Right, it's pretty quick.
It usually just completely goes, which is why we always recommend, it doesn't really matter if you're running off of a conventional hard drive as your main, or your C drive, that's your main hard drive, or a solid state. We always recommend a backup just to make sure you're protected.
Yeah. Backups are, you'll hear us say that regularly. In my world, I am referring to my backup of stuff on a regular basis. Oh, geez, I've been writing code, and I've introduced new code that broke something, and I need to get the old version. I wish I could go back a couple of days. And it's great to be able to just open my backup software, get the 2-day-old version of whatever the file is, and take a look at it. And that brings up historical backups. Backups of today is great. That's important, because most of your stuff doesn't change all the time. But historical backups that allow you to go back yesterday, the day before, the week before, the month before, are very valuable, and the only types of backups that I personally want to have.
Oh, it's huge. Or if you accidentally deleted a particular file or overwrote something and you really need to go back and get it, like you said. There are some programs out there that have auto-save features that try to save you from yourself and kind of have that backup in place. Like Microsoft Word is a good example of that. I have seen that save people in the past where it makes automatic save points. It's called, I think, version or revision history. So I had a customer come in one time and he was working on this really important document and somehow it was all wiped out, everything in the document, and then he had unfortunately saved. So he came in very stressed out. I was able to luckily find in the revision history by clicking up on the top. I think you can click on the newer version. It's going to be the file name itself. So long as you have autosave on, you can actually kind of, like you said, go back in time to a previous version. So there are softwares out there that kind of try to get that put in place even if you don't have your own backup software.
Does revision history have to be turned on?
I think autosave is what turns that on. So if you have autosave turned off, then I have seen it not work for some people.
All right. So if you want revision history, you should verify that. I have seen situations where we thought that was going to save us and it wasn't there.
Yes, yeah. So if you have, if you wanted to save it manually whenever you'd like, and you go and there's like this little slider up at the top left of Word, if you turn off autosave, you're actually disabling that built-in feature that could save you in the future.
Yeah. Windows itself has some kind of a built-in feature for its entire file system that has at least a previous version of that file or a saved version of that file that you don't see. But that feature does have to be turned on, and damn it, I can't think of the name.
File history?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I have heard bits and pieces. Some people say that file history
Shadow
works
copy.
Great, but...
Shadow file copy, that's what it's called.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. But that has to be turned on or it's not there.
Right. Yeah, you got to do some research sometimes to make sure you do have a good backup in place for anything that's important for you.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
All right, what else you got?
I do actually, you brought it up earlier, and I did want to ask, mostly because I hadn't heard this story before.
Right.
How did the Linux machine get a virus? What did that look like?
So the Linux machine, and that is, it's a rare enough event to where you would inquire about that. Yeah. So we host websites, and probably, and this has happened, I think actually it's happened twice to me over the years, where the website got infected. Somebody got into our server from the outside world, or through our website technology. They were able to inject code in every web page that we had.
Wow.
And so at every web page, at the top of the web page, there was a piece of JavaScript code. And when any customer opened up our site, it would redirect them to this robots thing. You know, prove you're not a robot. And there's a picture of the typical dancing robot. And you're supposed to prove you're not a robot. And when you do, the code downloads. And if I remember correctly, it auto spawns itself once you've clicked it.
Wow.
But that's how people they get people's contacts. They get and the bottom line is, here's the interesting thing. What it does is it took over my server and used my server as a drone.
Yep.
And then whatever I got injected with, it used my server as the kickoff point to other servers in the world. And I mean lots of other servers in the world. It was going all over the place and trying to push this same virus into their servers. And then it was a replicating thing where it would go over and over and over. So I got a call from Comcast at the time, my internet service provider, telling me that my server is putting out, there's excessive this going. They can see the bandwidth jump. They know something malicious is going on. And if we don't get a handle on it in X, they're going to have to shut it down. Right. And they did shut it down. And I think it took 2 days for me to get that back on track because I had to find out what was going on, how it got there, and then how to guard against it. And that was many years ago. And then there are programs like Fail to Ban and other programs on the Linux side for the server environment that now, and I've little by little learned these security lessons and I've amped up over time. But one of them is Fail to Ban, and if the same IP address is hitting the server more than X times in a certain period of time, we can block that IP address.
Nice.
from having any interactions with the server. And there are other security measures that we've since put in place, but it's always a cat-mouse game, and that has happened twice. Oh, and wait a second.
Oh.
Big point there. In both cases, I just remembered a weak password and username combination was the doorway in. So we host WordPress sites, and at that time, I didn't guard against complex usernames and passwords. Somebody could have had ABC123 as a password. The same thing with our email software we were hosting back then. We would have allowed them to have small passwords and not think much about it. But the software that's repetitiously knocking on those servers' doors, trying different usernames and password combination till they get one, and then they're in. Once they're in, they have more rights than they would have otherwise. In both cases, it was due to lax credentials.
Yep. No, that's interesting, because security has definitely gotten a lot better over the years, I'm sure, when it comes to websites and stopping those sort of things. But I have heard about, I think sometimes people call them botnets, when they take control of a computer and then they start using it as a server to throw out more and more viruses to people.
Right.
But yeah, it can be a nightmare. And then passwords, definitely make sure your password isn't something that somebody could easily guess.
Well, it's huge.
It is huge, especially for your email address. Be really cautious about that, because while it is kind of an annoyance to have to type in a longer one or have it written down somewhere, it could really save you in the future if somebody really wanted to get into your account and could somehow guess your password. It would protect you from a lot of headaches.
I'd like to just follow up on that just a little bit more, because I have learned in my decades in this business, passwords are the #1 cause of security violations on your business and your residence environment. Because people are knocking on your router's door all day long, trying to get past the router, and if they find an open port in the router that leads them to your computer, then the only thing between them and your getting through is the username and password combination you used on your computer. Especially critical for people that use remote desktop.
Yep.
And it's just whether it's your email, whether it's a website login, or wherever it is, your Amazon, your Gmail, take the time to have a complicated password, and and then get a password manager to store those things in. We've had this conversation, I know, on multiple live streams.
Yep. Can't
emphasize it enough.
Yeah, and password managers, there's a ton of them out there that you could look into to see if it works for your use case. There's ones built into your browser as well, like Google Password Manager, Firefox has one, Microsoft has one, Apple as well. You could use any number of those. I know Apple's is pretty secure, and also you can have it on your iPhone and have it synced between all your devices. I think they make it pretty easy to work with. But then there's also some third-party ones out there, like LastPass or 1Password, or isn't Bitwarden?
Bitwarden, yeah.
There's quite a few, so you could definitely do some digging in, and there's a lot of really good ones out there.
I mean, it's like your house. You could have a door that's made out of steel, and that's one door behind another door with big steel members and huge locks and all, and then it's a pain in the arse to go into your house every day, right? So there's this, you get too much, and then there's a risk reward, and so you've got to decide what that balance is. But you can have a complex password instead of a paper door, if you will, and as long as you have a password management software that makes it easy to keep track of it all.
Yeah, oh, for sure. It definitely helps.
All right, what else we got?
That was an interesting one. Well, let's see here. Well, is there anything you wanted to touch on more with websites and server?
Yeah, we'll talk about, this doesn't apply to our normal demographic that walks in the door, but we'll talk about websites a little bit. I've been in the website development business for decades, and it's, if you're a business, obviously that regular people don't need websites, but if you're a business, you do. And I want to talk a little bit about industry-specific websites. If you're in the restaurant business, or you're a builder, or you're a mortgage company, or you're a realtor, and you come into a company like ours and say, we need a website, it would be very easy for us to take you down a custom website road that would cost you a lot of money. If I didn't give you any of the information that's between my ears, I would just say, sure, that'll cost you between $5,000 and $10,000, and we've got to go through, we've got to create this vision of what your site's going to look like, what the behavior is going to be. What is it like to be a restaurant? What is it like to be, a construction company? And I've got to learn, I've got to become an expert in your industry and create all those intricacies. That's one way of doing it, and a lot of website companies will be happy to take you down that road. But my advice to you is, if you have a large industry model, there are plenty of industry-specific websites out there that you can pay so much a month to represent your company and the product that you offer. They're in the construction website business, that's what they do, or they're in the architecture website business, or in the restaurant business. And all the things your industry needs, they've already made 1 million of them for their other customers. And not only that, they're refining them every day. So if you hook up with them, you don't have to worry. If you hooked up with me and I created that custom website for you, 5 years from now, or 4 years from now, technology may very well have gone in a very, take AI or however that infiltrates. These companies that are doing it as a service and taking money in every month, they are continuing to improve that platform for their entire customer base, where I'm working on the next industry, well, whatever the next thing is. And there's only, it's a small business, only so much of us to go around. You're not going to get that kind of upkeep. And likely 4 or 5 years from now, I'm going to be saying, your technology's too old and we need to reinvent it. And so it's something that, and not to mention that you're in it for $100 a month now, and yes, you got to pay that every month, but I think the long-term upsides are there for people looking for a website. Now, that said, you may have a company that you want a specific, you know what you want, and it's not out there. You just don't have the feature set. It's like building a custom house that nobody else has. You want what you want, and you want this there, and this there, and this there, and you don't want to do any pounding of round pegs into square holes, and you're willing to spend the money knowing that it's going to take more labor for somebody to implement your dream. And then you work hand in hand together to accomplish every color, every nuance, everything. It's your company. That's when you want a custom website developer to work that out for you.
Yeah.
And the technology your website is built in is also important. There's you want to make sure that if you do a custom website, that because now you're not part of a big operation and whatever they're doing on a monthly basis where you've got guaranteed whatever. You want to make sure that you're building it in website technology that is long-term sustainable. And it's going to get a little geeky, so I won't go too deep into that. But PHP is one of those technologies, and WordPress is a great technology. It just needs to make, there are millions of different themes in WordPress. Some people say, I don't like WordPress because they've had a bad experience with themes and plugins and things like that. Yeah, there's a million different bad themes and bad plugins from WordPress. There's a million different absolutely gorgeous themes and plugins for WordPress. It can be the best site in the world, or it can be the worst site in the world. The platform just gives you those types of possibilities.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's a little bit about websites.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, there's so much, I'd imagine, when it comes to website building that you could definitely go down the rabbit hole. If you want something really custom or particular, there's definitely a lot out there you can dig into.
It's an orchestra of technologies. Website is not just a, this is the software we use. You've got something called JavaScript, you've got CSS, you've got PHP, you've got HTML. You've got a lot of different SQL if there's a database involved. You've got a lot of different languages that a company has to know, and you put them all together to make what you see on the screen. And then it has to be browser compatible. It has to, people get a website, it looks good in a browser. They think, oh, well, that's beautiful, thank you. Here's your money. We're good. And they walk out the door, and then they pull it up on their phone, and it falls apart.
Yep.
And so there's this thing called responsive on a website. You want to make sure that you've tested it on your phone, on your tablet, horizontal, landscape, and portrait vertical. You want to look at it on many different devices to make sure that whatever site you have chosen or had created passes the litmus test in those different environments before you fork over your money.
Actually, something kind of bubbled up from that for me. Still pertaining to websites, if you are trying to get something done on a website and for whatever reason it just keeps having some sort of frustrating error whenever you're trying to input information, or you're trying to maybe change your bank password or any sort of things like that, and the app or the website on your phone just isn't working, sometimes going to a computer or vice versa, going to a phone or trying a different browser can help troubleshoot those sort of weirdnesses, because sometimes websites, they aren't always perfect, and you can run into issues where one device works better than another.
Yeah, one device or one browser can sometimes fix a problem that you had with the other device or the other browser. It's worth a shot.
Yeah.
Another way is clearing the cache of a browser. Sometimes you'll have information that's from a previous visit that's somehow still in there, and you're not getting the result you expected to get in the website. Control-Shift-I, I think it is. No, that's for the developer console. Alternate. Okay, no, I'm not. There it is.
Ah, there you go.
So it's Shift-Control-Delete. That's it.
Shift-Control-Delete.
I'm going to bring that over to here so you can see it. If you have a feeling that cache is part of the problem and you want to clear the cache in your browser window, if you hold down the Shift-Control key on your keyboard and hit Delete, and I think this applies to all browsers across the board, you'll get an option that comes up to delete browsing data. This was a hotkey that we didn't talk about.
No, that's a really useful one.
Yeah.
Shift-Control-Delete. I'm going to have to try that one out
and
myself.
You see you've got an option for browsing history, cookies and other data, cached images and files. You might not want to delete your passwords out of there, so you'll have to take a look at that and see what cache that you would like to delete.
And that's C-A-C-H-E, not C-A-S-H.
Right. Nothing to do with the money. I would like to bubble up one more thing here on this subject while we're talking about websites.
Sure.
A lot of times, and there's a hotkey aspect of this too, you're on a website and there's a form that you've got to fill out. And it's a long form. And so you're writing and you're writing and you're writing. It could be an email to a friend via Gmail. It could be a long form in a government website. But you get down to the last thing, you've got a bunch of fields of information in this big text field. You hit the submit button and it tells you, oh, I'm sorry, your limit has expired, your time limit has expired, and you need to log in and do it all over again. And all of a sudden, a big piece of your life has just been wasted. And I use this on a regular basis, and maybe you do too. But as soon as you get done, if you know that you've typed in enough text to where it's going to be painful if this website blows up on you, do a Control-A and save the text you've typed in. I'm going to give you an example of that. Could you minimize us to the lower?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm just going to go to our own website in our Contact Us form. All right.
Yeah.
Well, are you aware of that?
No, I have not seen that before.
Well, our Contact Us
Speaking of websites,
is showing up, but we have, this is as raw as it gets. We have a text area down here where the footer is too large. Now, I'm going to try that. I can type it, but there's not a lot of space to type it. Boy, that's embarrassing. It's good for viewership, though. They enjoy this kind of stuff. All right, so we have, and you know what?
So that's a Chrome.
This falls right into what we were talking about earlier. So my Contact Us page in Chrome, in our website, this is probably to do with some updates that we've made very recently. The footer is too large, and it cuts off a lot of the bottom of this Contact Us page. So taking a page out of what she talked about earlier, I said, well, let me try it in Firefox. I opened Firefox, and it's perfect. And this wasn't pre-scripted. This would have been good.
Yeah, that's really funny, actually.
Okay, so now let me get back to what I was talking about. And we type in a bunch of text. In fact, I'll make that text. I'll go ahead. Are you familiar with lorem ipsum?
Yes, I am.
You are? Okay, well, You've had a little bit of, is that from website development stuff, or?
I mean, I've heard of it from there, but also just I came across it somehow and looked it up, and I was like, okay.
Okay, well, Lorem Ipsum as a website, which is lipsum.com, the only purpose for the site, so far as I know, is to spit out text as filler text for whatever purpose you need it from. And it does tell you at the top, it's a dummy text of the printing and standard dummy text ever since the 1500s.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, well, I learned about it in the early 1990s. Gallery of type. An unknown printer took a gallery of type and scrambled it to make a type specimen book, and it has survived not only 5 centuries, but has leapt into electronic typesetting, blah, 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 blah. So, well,
wow.
There you have some Lorem Ipsum history. Now, what I use it for in websites is, I'm creating a website for somebody, I want to generate some paragraphs of text just to fill the area in, so when the customer looks at it, I don't have what they want to say, but I tell them, well, you can say that much of it right here.
Right.
And we create these placeholders. But anyway, somewhere in here we can tell how many paragraphs, right here, how many words, I'm going to generate 5 paragraphs of Lorem Ipsum text, okay? And then it gives it to me right here.
Oh, it looks like we're open.
All right, so I'll go down my 5 paragraphs, or paragraphs, depending on how you talk, and I'm going to paste that in my contact us form in order to demonstrate this. Okay.
Yeah.
See, this is what the website was supposed to look like in Chrome, and I'm going to go ahead. Now, if I hit the send email and it fails, then you're going to be really upset if you didn't just copy and paste it from Lorem Ipsum, because then it would be easy. But if you had handwritten this long conversation only to have it fail, you'd be bummed out. So what you want to do is hold on your Control key and your A key. I think in Apple that would be Command A, and it's going to copy, it's going to highlight all your text, and then you can do Control C or Command C, or you can right click and choose copy. And now when I send that email and it blows up, I only have to come back here and do a Command or Control V, puts it all right back, and off I go again.
Yeah.
You should be using Control A and Control C, that combination. Anytime you've created a large volume of text and you want to make sure it's safekeeping when you're about to make your next move, whatever that move may be.
And for some users too, just in case, just on this real quick,
Yeah.
some people might have written this out and then accidentally clicked out of it. If you were to do Control A now, it wouldn't work. So just be cautious whenever you're trying to copy something. Make sure you actually left click into the text box that you're trying to work on.
Right.
And another thing you can do the Control A for select all and the Control C for copy. And then finally the Control V for paste. You can also right click in Windows and do the select all and then right click again and then copy if that is more comfortable for you as well.
Right, that's a good point. And any of these menus that you see, when we right click, you'll see this menu that she talked about. The Control C, Control V, and Control A, and all these things are shown to you as temporary shortcuts, for these same commands that are on the menu. So so it kind of helps you know about these things. Okay, so that was my bubble up on that. And I've learned I need to do something about our Chrome display on our Contact Us page. Otherwise, they're limited to the sliver of information where they can type in what they want to type in.
They can say one sentence, but actually they wouldn't even be able to send the email, would they?
The scroll bar would appear. No, that's a good point. Yeah, we are really handicapped there.
Yeah, we got to fix that.
All right. Okay.
But I think we're open for business today, so...
Have we already gone through what we needed to say, or did we just get started that late?
I think we did get started pretty late. We've been on air for about 40 minutes, though.
What?
So...
Are you kidding me?
No.
Wow. That went pretty well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll sign off. I'll start with myself. Thanks for watching. Please give us a call or come down to the store. We can do remote service, so wherever you are in the world, reach out to us, and we can reach back to you and solve your problem.
Yeah. Happy to help anytime, and thank you for joining us today on our podcast, whether live or just watching back, and we appreciate you taking the time to learn with us.
All right. Have a nice day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.